俺は忍びだ。
The Boruto series has always been a topic of discussion over the years, and mostly in a negative light, with often the main criticisms and negativity coming from the amount of filler the series has and the subpar animation that people bash it for, which has become most notable in the last year. So today I want to go over the latter, talking about Boruto's animation quality, giving full retrospective on the series as a whole, talking about why Boruto's animation is so bad. Boruto as a series from a visual perspective started out very strong. Not just because the well done foreshadowing the opener had that got everybody hyped for Teen Boruto, but at the start, even if you weren't following the series at the time, it had some pretty well animated moments. There were obvious dips in quality at points in episodes, which is to be expected of a weekly production. However, just about every episode featuring action had some pretty good animation in it, and that was at the least, and the best episodes had some really good cuts like Sakura vs Shin. Even casual episodes was capable of pulling out some pretty good Sakuga, like this confrontation between Boruto and Konohamaru. This obviously thanks to how much effort Studio Pierrot was putting into the Boruto series, obviously at the detriment of a show like Black Clover, but that's a point for another day. The amount of talented individuals who were working on Boruto at the start was absolutely phenomenal, and all this led into the retelling of the Momoshiki arc, where we would see one of the, if not the most iconic display of animation in history, that being the Naruto and Sasuke vs Momoshiki fight. This fight had some of the best people in the industry, like Wailing Sang, Norio Matsumoto, Arifumi Amai, and more, had the internet in a chokehold, and even till this day is still the most viewed video on Crunchyroll's YouTube, sitting at a whopping 62 million views. At this point, Boruto was getting so much support from Studio Pierrot that acting director Tetsuya Shihara, who worked on Black Clover and literally carried Black Clover on his back, was jealous of the quality of animation that Boruto was boasting, which led to him trying to be ambitious with episode 63, however it fell apart. After episode 65, the anime was relatively the same, still a long stream of filler and anime canon, with pretty much the same visual quality that started the series. While you'd have some dips in quality, you'd still have some really well animated moments from people like Hiroki Yamashita, so it wasn't anything that people weren't used to. These ups and downs in animation quality that were to be expected was pretty consistent until the Jigen arc started. With an anime canon arc before then and the arc itself, it once again put on a stunning performance. Instead of just one episode that was visually stunning, most of them were. With some help from ridiculously talented animators, they were able to create yet another visual spectacle, that being 189, and while less impressive, episodes like 204 still put a display on their own with some of the best animators in the industry. Boruto at this time was one of the best looking shows of the year. This is no small feat, as this aired in the same year that Black Clover was in the heights of its series, along with shows like Tactop Destiny, which was a Mappa and Madhouse co-production, and even Jujutsu Kaisen aired most of its episode in this year. However, Boruto still reigned supreme. With all this information to start out, you guys would think that Boruto would never have the reputation of being badly animated, and that Boruto would still continue this pace as expected. However, after the Jigen arc and a little bit of episodes afterwards, all the expected highs and lows just became consistent lows. There was no filler episode with god tier animation, none of these crazy animated sequences, and not really any of the top tiers of the anime industry. And this wasn't even just the filler in between. The Boruto manga canon came back, and yes, while it was a step above the rest in terms of quality, they weren't nearly as good as some of the heights that Boruto had shown before. So what's exactly happening? Why did this dip in quality happen? What is going on in the behind the scenes of Boruto? To understand this, we need to understand what makes shows look as good as they do. A lot of people just attribute things to budgets. However, the main two components are the time given and the staff that they have. Weekly production episodes don't often have good schedules. Often weekly production episodes are outsourced to give the main studio time in order to deliver higher quality. That's how it's worked for a long time. This is why when people say this episode's an in-house Pierrot episode, people tend to get excited for obvious reasons. However, the conditions and schedules for this show are not good, as we have multiple statements from animators themselves talking about the conditions they're under, like an animator on the Code arc stating that they did over 27 cuts in 9 hours. And just from the quality, the inconsistencies, stuff that could have only happened if the schedule was as bad, just shows the poor conditions that the Boruto series has been under. And this doesn't just hurt smaller animators, this also hurts some of the big ones. Hiroki Yamashita, who I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is charged with some of the most iconic scenes in the Naruto franchise. Scenes like Madara vs the Shinobi Alliance or Baryon Mode Naruto's fight. The list goes on and on for the amount of stuff he's contributed to the Boruto series and the Naruto franchise as a whole. However, in the Code arc, he did make an appearance, however he was watered down to the point where he only had a 3-second cut, and it wasn't nearly as good as what he could do given a good schedule. We also see this in the final episode as well. While it obviously looked better than anything in the last year, even this fight with Code showed some clear issues in production. For example, when Code attacks Kawaki in this scene, in the Genga of the very same scene, the ground was supposed to break and crack under it. However, in the actual anime adaptation, that never happens. And what's even worse is you can still hear the sound of the ground breaking, showing that this was intentional, but had to be removed likely due to a lack of time. With all that being said, the schedule is terrible, but what about the other component I spoke of? What about the staff behind it and the top tier animators that I stated before? Well, unfortunately, a lot of the top tier animators that have been present on the series before never showed up in the last year. A big component is probably the schedule. Animators and freelancers are less likely to work on shows with terrible schedules. This happens because not only could they just not flex their full creative freedom, but also the cut could just get watered down or cut out the anime entirely. This is the same thing that happened to Vincent Chansard in season 5 of My Hero Academia. So there is very real concerns with not wanting to work on a show with bad production. However, the other reason isn't just Boruto, but it could be a consequence of the anime industry as a whole, as a lot of the animators who would have been on Boruto just blatantly show up on other shows. Somebody like Vincent Chansard, who has some of the most prominent cuts in the Boruto series, states that he's going to stay with One Piece. Kyukawa, who was also appearing in the Boruto Jigen arc, was not only just found recently in the most recent Attack on Titan special, but also specifically states that he's working on Mushoku Tensei Season 2. And the list for these kind of people will just go on and on, which is obviously a big factor when it comes to maintaining the visuals of a series. And if you think this is just an excuse or a load of crap, legitimately think about it. How many shows have you guys have seen in the last 3 years that have not only required animation, but have had top tier animation? Chances are, all of those shows that you can think of have had an animator that has participated on Boruto, especially the more mainstream ones. With all these anime being produced with top tier visuals, there's just no way Boruto could get all the love and support it once did, which is unfortunate. However, that's just the harsh reality of the series. Now, Boruto is going on hiatus, or at the time this video comes out, it should be on hiatus already. However, I don't really believe that the hiatus is just going to straighten things out like a lot of people would. As the industry keeps getting worse and worse, I don't expect Boruto to get better. There's just no conceivable way. It is incredibly unfortunate, but this is just how series pans out sometimes. With that being said, if you made it to the end of this little ramble into behind the scenes of Boruto's production, and you actually enjoy this video and you want me to do more breakdowns on the behind the scenes of shows, then once again, please subscribe to the video, as I am going to be posting more and more of these, along with other breakdowns on shows that are coming out, and we're going to be at 500 subs pretty soon. With that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'm Debunked by Aaron, and I'm signing out.